All right. Well, first I want to welcome everyone. And for those of you who I don't know, I have not met, my name is Dr. Albanese, and my area of expertise is in wellness. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Our mission is to help as many families as possible, create healthy lifestyles, and reach optimal health through chiropractic. We're going to do that in terms of your diet or nutrition. That's where we're going to start tonight. So when we look at nutrition, it can be kind of confusing, and it's designed that way to a certain extent because we have a lot of different options, if you will, when it comes to our diets. Everybody's made the same, but yet we have the Mediterranean diet, the South Beach diet, Atkins diet, paleo diet. We can count points and numbers, or low fat, low carb, high protein, no fat. It's pretty confusing. Eat right for my body type, eat right for my blood type. And there's a lot of information that's thrown towards us. We make certain decisions, and those decisions are based on our beliefs, the information that we have. So based on that information, we're going to have certain behaviors or action steps that we take that are going to produce certain outcomes. Those outcomes, if you will, are somewhat designed for us to take certain action steps because the outcomes are coming from the people telling us what to do and how to do it. And the benefit is, for them, financial. You can lose weight a lot of ways, but why do you need to buy certain foods? Why do you need to join a certain group to lose weight? Because that's what they tell us, right? So what I'm going to share with you today is going to be information that's not based on the new fad or the new information that's out there. It's going to be based on our body and science. We haven't changed for thousands of years. So why should our diet change? Why should it be different? The way we're designed and the way the requirements of our body, we need air, we need food, we need water, we need nerve impulse to survive. If we don't have any of those or one of those, you can't live. Maybe 4 seconds to 4 minutes, but that's about it. That hasn't changed. Neither have our requirements in terms of nutrition and food. So when you look at the information that we have presented to us and the outcomes as a result of our actions, it hasn't produced real favorable results. If you look at our country, we rank 34th in the world in health. 33 other countries are healthier than ours. I'm fairly intelligent, my wife says, most times. But I probably can't name 33 other countries. We went from 1970s, 5% of our children were obese. Now, 30% of our children are obese. So I look at that and I said, well, how does that happen? We had the big low-fat, no-fat craze back in the 70s and 80s, but that hasn't really helped us. When you look at the food pyramid, we've gone from the 4 food groups, right? Milk or dairy, meats, fruits, vegetables, and breads and cereals. All of those, milk, 4 daily cups, between 2 and 4 cups. Fruits and vegetables, 4 servings. Meats, 2 servings. Breads and cereals, 4 servings. So now that was in the 70s. Fast forward to today, we have the food pyramid or the My Plate. Everything has remained the same. Milk, fruit and vegetables, meats, between 2 and 4 servings. The only thing that's changed, well, 2 things. Number 1, they added fats, oils. That's great. But they also added sweets, which to me, that's pretty bizarre. It's not even a food. Sweets and candy aren't even food. They're not even nutrition. So why even put them on a food pyramid? Right? This is meant to help us, direct us to a healthy diet. Now, we've gone from breads and cereals, 4 servings, to now grains, 6 to 11 servings. It's almost quadrupled, but it's, tripled, right? So then I asked myself, well, look at the change in our bodies. Look at the change in our health. What has that produced? When we talk about 34th in the world, that's a big number. And it can be such a big number that it doesn't really mean anything to us. Wow, 34th in the world. Okay, but I'm over here. How does that apply to me? Well, in our state of Virginia, we rank 23rd out of 50 in the state of health. 22 other states are healthier than us. We have 1.8 million people who are obese in our state, 29.4%. 10.2% of the people in our state, type 2 diabetics. That's 650,000 people. That's our community. Those are numbers that represent us. Right? Now, the big thing is you can change that. Based on your lifestyle, based on your habits that come from your beliefs, you can produce different outcomes. Right? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Because when you look at food and you look at your diet, what we're required to have, our body's requirements, the way we're designed to eat has not changed. But all of the options that we have available to us have changed considerably. So there was a study done, research study, 1985. It was published in New England Journal of Medicine by a doctor. His name is Boyd Eaton. He's an anthropologist from Emory University. And what he was doing was studying hunter-gatherer tribes. And he was studying these tribes, and he realized that when I'm studying these people that lived 10, 20, 40,000 years ago, they didn't show any signs of heart disease, of cancers, diabetes. They were lean. He said, if they lived like that, or if they, represented this type of health, how did they live? What was different about them compared to us? Well, number one, they didn't go down the street and buy their food. Either they fell off a tree, picked it out of the ground, flew by, walked by, or swam by them, right? That's the food choices they had. Then their lifestyle, well, they didn't get in a car and drive to work and then sit in a box and then they moved. That was how they had to get around. That's how they did everything. So their lifestyle. So based on that, he started studying those tribes and those populations, and then fast forward to today. The hunter-gatherer tribes of today, the Aborigines people, people in Asia, people in Africa. And you know what? No diabetes, no cancers, no heart disease. None of these autoimmune diseases, these inflammatory conditions don't exist. Well, their lifestyles are one that does not produce that result. See, health is predictable. Health is predictable. If you do certain things and you do them consistently, you're going to get a certain result. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can you make your health predictable in terms of your diet? There are other factors. One of the things about getting adjusted, it's about your nervous system. This is the part of your body that processes everything, inside and outside the body. That's a part of your health. Your nutrition, your exercise, your thought process, these are all aspects of health. So when I look at our diet and see how that's changed over the years, the one obviously noticeable change is the requirement of grains, right? It's tripled. So I'm going to start there and talk about that. Grains were really brought to the forefront when our society went from an agricultural society to an industrial society, when we had more people living in small areas that we had to feed. How did we do that? Well, we said, let's find something that we can grow fairly inexpensively, that we can store for long periods of time, because we all didn't have refrigerators back then, and that was very easy to keep, very inexpensive, and easy to grow. Now we have grains, right? We weren't designed to eat grains like we do now. Whole grains, if we saw them naturally, but we're not curd chewers. Our jaws don't go like this, like a cow, right? So we weren't designed to eat grasses and grains. Let me explain a little bit about grains. Grains, a whole grain, is like a big balloon. If you picture a balloon, you can put a ball inside a balloon. That's what a grain looks like. So the outer layer is called the bran. There's a lot of fiber there. There's some carbohydrates, a lot of protein. There are also nutrients there. In the little ball inside, that's the germ. Okay? In there, we have a lot of protein. Some carbohydrates, very minimal amount, a little bit of fiber, and nutrients. Then the part that takes up the rest of the space is called the endosperm, the starch or the sugar. Now, if you're eating a whole grain, you're getting all of that. You're getting the fiber, the protein, the vitamins, and the minerals. but we refine it. What happens during the refining process? Take away the bran, the outer layer, take away the little layer, and you're left with the space in between, which is the endosperm, the starch of the sugar. So we take away all the good parts of it, and we're left with the sugar. That's what we do with grain. So when you see, now if you're going to buy or eat grains, the better choice is going to be a whole grain. Now be careful, because when you look at labels, it can say whole grain added or whole grain within, fortified with whole grain. That's not a whole grain. That's a refined sugar, refined grain, that has whole grain parts added to it. But it's a good selling point because people see whole grain, they just think whole grain, great, put it in the cart. So you have to be kind of like a detective. You got to read into it, okay? Even in the ingredients, you'll see whole grain added. Like if you see that as an ingredient, like 3 or 4 words down the list, that's not a whole grain, but it'll say it on the package. So you have to be very aware of that. Now, you ever hear anybody say I'm gluten intolerant? Right? Gluten-free this, gluten-free that. Gluten is made up of 2 proteins called gliadin and glutenin. We're just going to call it gluten, okay? Now, what does that mean? Those proteins are called anti-nutrients. They grab things and hold on to them. It's kind of like the girl at my 8th grade dance. She grabbed a hold of me and I didn't dance with anyone else, right? No fun. They grab onto you and they hold. So minerals, nutrients, anti-nutrients, they grab them, your body can't absorb them, you can't use them. We also don't produce an enzyme called phytase. Phytase breaks down phytic acid, which is in grains. We don't produce the enzyme. Why don't we produce that enzyme? Because we're not meant to eat grains. So we don't have the equipment to break it down. Phytic acid is also an anti-nutrient. It binds with calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium. Grabs onto these things and doesn't let them go. That's why when you see cereal boxes or things like this, it's fortified with, it's always fortified with what? Vitamins and minerals. Right? Vitamin B is a big one that gluten attaches to. So it has to be fortified with it because it doesn't come in. Right? And then when you eat it, it's still going to block some of that. When you look at nutrients and the density of foods, the nutrient density of foods, and they did a study on like 50 some odd nutrients that the body requires. And then they said, what kind of foods have these nutrients? What ones have the most amount of nutrients? Grains, refined grains, didn't even come up on the list. There is no minimum requirement for grains. It doesn't exist because you don't get anything from it. Now, if you want to take this website down, it's a great website. The World's Healthiest Foods, whfoods.com. What it does, it looks at foods and the nutritional density of those foods, and it ranks them, right? In the book Eat to Live, they rank the foods from 0 to 1,000. Kale is 1,000. It's the most nutrient-dense food you can eat. Now, you know how they say oatmeal, have some oatmeal, right? It lowers cholesterol, it's a good thing to eat. 53. So you go from 0 to 1,000, that's 53. You have to eat 20 bowls of oatmeal to get the same nutritional value as 1 bowl of kale. Not to mention oatmeal causes acidity and other things that we'll talk about. All right? White bread, white pasta, 18. So that's the nutritional value of those things. Not much. If you go to this website, whfoods.com, it has all kinds of foods. You will find white bread on there because it's next to nothing. So what foods do you think have the highest nutritional value?
Grains.
Grains, fruits and vegetables. All the foods that are alive. They come with it, they bring life. Well, that's what you get out of it. You know, carrots and artichokes and cabbage and asparagus and bok choy and spinach and peppers and romaine lettuce and broccoli. These are all the most nutrient-dense foods. That's where you get your bang for your buck. So the foods that are alive, those are the types of foods that are going to supply you with nutrients. When we look at grains, they comprise about 24% of our diet. About 60% of our diet are processed foods. We wonder why 40 years ago to now, we have more information, right? More resources, but yet our health is declining. We have more conditions than we did 40 years ago. How can we just come up with new conditions for the body? Well, it's because of the foods we eat, a lot of it, and the lifestyles we live. Now, when you eat grains, what happens is grains are broken down into its simplest form, which is sugar, glucose. So, sugar, good or bad? What do you think?
You have to have sugar to live. Everything has to go down to glucose.
Okay. I heard bad.
I said that.
You said bad.
Well, there are good sugars and there are bad sugars.
Yes, it depends what kind of sugars they are and the quantity in which we eat the sugars. Because sugar is sugar. You know, I talk to people all the time, they say, well, I'm buying this at Whole Foods. I said, well, realize that's still sugar. Even if it's organic, it's still sugar, right? It's processed the same way. Better choice, but still sugar. So, I grew up thinking sugar was great. I had my old Italian aunt, give me some sugar over here, right?
I still think it's great.
I think it's great too. But here's the thing, sugar is good. It's meant to keep us alive. Now understand again, the information I'm sharing with you is based on how the body's designed, what we're required to have. Sugar is necessary. And it was we were designed to have sugar to keep us alive because it's a fast source of fuel. It's like kindling wood. You put the wood on, boom, you get a spark and a light like that. But it goes out real quick, right? Bigger source of energy is going to be fat, carbohydrates, things, longer term energy. So we have a fight or flight response. We need fast energy to the muscles, right? Come out of your cave, there's a lion. So you're either going to fight or flight. So what are we going to use for fuel? We're going to bring fuel to the muscles real quick. We have about 1 or 2 teaspoons of sugar traveling around the blood at any time. We eat, on the average, 53 teaspoons of sugar every day. So now we have about 52 teaspoons of sugar that we can't do anything with, so we're going to store it. Store it as fat. We can keep enough sugar in the muscles and the liver because sugar is basically delivered to 3 places. The muscles, the liver, or to fat. So we have enough sugar in the muscles and the liver to last us about a day. Very small amount. So we have that fight or flight response, the official stance of fight or flight response, right? Fight or flight response, we deliver sugar to the muscles and use the sugar that's in the muscles. Now we're out of that situation where we burn that sugar, right? We burn that sugar so we don't need to take any more and put it in storage. Sugar is designed to keep us alive. We were meant to eat sugar, but where does it come from? Natural sources. Right? We weren't meant to eat a plethora of sugar. We weren't meant to have I'm going to say a quarter of our diet from refined foods. 60%, 2/3 from processed foods that are just packed with sugar. So now, well, let me show you this. If we have one mechanism to decrease sugar, take glucose out of the blood, but we have many mechanisms, cortisol, epinephrine, growth hormone, many mechanisms to increase sugar. One, to lower it, many, to increase sugar. What do you think we were designed to do more efficiently? Lower sugar or increase it?
Increase.
Increase. We're designed to have sugar very quickly put into the blood. We weren't meant to have a lot of sugar in the blood that we need to take away. If one person falls asleep on the job, there's a couple others that can do its job. If this one falls asleep, we're in trouble, right? One person doing all that work. That's insulin. Insulin's job is not to take sugar out of blood. It's its job, but one little part of its job. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But how do we know what kind of carbohydrates to eat? Because all carbohydrates are broken down to the simplest form, which is glucose. And then the glucose travels into the blood. So how do we determine what kind of foods we should eat in terms of carbohydrates? Well, there's something called glycemic index. Anybody ever hear of that?
Mhm.
Okay. So glycemic index. Glycemic index tells us how fast a carbohydrate is converted to sugar. Okay, now, I hear this all the time from people that are trying to lose weight. People that, diabetic people. I can't eat fruit. Can't eat fruit. Increases blood sugar.
Yeah, it's the first thing.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Fruit is healthy for us. Why can't you eat fruit? Right? So glycemic index, ready? It goes from 0 to 100. White bread is 100. Okay? How fast sugar is converted to, carbohydrates converted to sugar. Okay? So we have white rice, glycemic index of 90. Banana, 60. A strawberry, 75. A pear, 55. All pretty high glycemic indexes, right? So you probably want to stay away from all those. We're going to look at things a little differently. We're not only going to look at how fast carbohydrates converted to sugar, but how fast it causes an increase in blood sugar, how fast it raises blood sugar. That's the important one. That's called glycemic load. Now, when we look at the glycemic load of those foods, white bread, almost 50, or white rice, almost 50. Banana goes all the way down to 11. Mango, 6. A pear, 12. See the difference? See, a lot of the diets are based on glycemic index. That's good, how fast it's converted to sugar, but we want to see how long does it take to cause an increase in my blood sugar. That's the important question. See, because fruits and vegetables do have a fairly high glycemic index, some of them, but they have a very low glycemic load. Why is that? Because it takes a long time to break them down, because it's all fiber. So it takes a longer time to break those foods down. I mean, go on a safari, look at a monkey. You're not going to find an overweight monkey. But that's what they eat, right? They eat bananas all day. Why? Because it takes a long time to process it and break it down. There's a lot of fiber there. We're designed to eat that food. That's what he put here, right? So we're designed to eat that. So glycemic load, you can Google glycemic load and get a list. Glycemic load is really what you want to look at in terms of these, if you want to look at the chart. An easy way to determine, well, do I eat complex carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates? Here's the way to determine what kind of carbohydrates are healthiest. The fiber content. Does my carbohydrate that I'm eating have fiber, or is it non-fiber? If it has fiber, not added to it, but fiber, that's a carbohydrate. That's going to be your fruits, your vegetables. It's going to have a lower glycemic index, but also a very low glycemic load. That's the healthy food to eat. Anything that's starchy, it's going to have a high glycemic load, but there's no fiber. So we're going to process it very quickly. It's going to cause an increase in our blood sugar. That's when it's not healthy. That's the way we want to look at carbohydrates. What is the fiber content of this food that I'm eating? We eat about 5 pounds of sugar every 10 days, right? Then on top of that, in our infinite wisdom, we produce high fructose corn syrup, which is even better than sugar. Why? Has 0 calories associated with it, 0 fat calories. So we go and buy things like Yoplait. You see these commercials, right? They open the refrigerator and it's like all this key lime pie, apple crust, I don't know, whatever it is, right? This is Yoplait Light, thick and creamy, 100 calories, 0 from fat. So if somebody's not informed, they're going to say, hey, this is good, 0 fat calories. That's what I want, right? You actually want your diet. My diet is about 40% fat. That's what it consists of. And I don't count calories, but I did the last week or two just to see what it was, so I can tell you it's about 40% fat. So we're going to eat this, has 0 fat. And you look on the back, the nutritional facts, 0 fat. But now we're informed, we understand that sugar, a little bit stored in the muscle, a little bit stored in the liver, a lot of it stored as fat, right? But now we know that the #1 source of sugar is corn. High fructose corn syrup, fructose, corn oil, corn starch, modified corn, anything with dextrin in it, right? Dextrin, maltodextrin, xanth, all these are sugars, right? So now we read the ingredients, not the nutritional facts, because that's what you want to look at. The second ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. The third ingredient, corn syrup. The fourth one, modified corn starch. About 30% of this turns to fat. So now we start eating this and we say, why aren't I losing weight? Because this is turning to fat. That's how our body processes it. And it doesn't stimulate different types of hormones, which I'll talk about in a minute. Ghrelin and leptin, which are very important to be aware of. So understanding sugar and where it comes and how it's broken down, how a carbohydrate is broken down into sugar, and knowing the effects it has on your body, okay? This is really important. Really important, not just because it's stored as fat. In 1931, some of the first research was done by Dr. Warburg, who was a Nobel Prize laureate. And his research showed a very important thing. You know what the #1 fuel source in food is for cancer? Sugar. Sugar. Right? We all have cancer cells in us. You read different studies, between 4,000 and 11,000 cancer cells in us. Why is it cancer can manifest and grow and thrive in some people and not others? We all have the same organs, same blood. Why is that? Because our body chemistry, the environment in which that organism lives. You either have a garden that weeds can't grow, but plants and flowers do, because the soil, the pH of the soil, is conducive to those flowers growing. Or, you hear this a lot here, right? The soil is acidic. Well, that's great for weeds. Well, that's also great for cancer. Sugar promotes acidic environment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But see, it's more than just, oh, don't eat the sugar. It's how the sugar affects us. You know, when we eat sugar, we stimulate insulin. Right? The pancreas says, hey, get out there and grab all that sugar. We don't want it in the blood, because if we have tons of sugar in the blood, what does that cause? Diabetes, right? So we want that out of the blood. So now, insulin, one job of insulin is to grab sugar. That's not even its primary job. One person over here is lowering blood sugar. If that was its sole job, great, but it's not. Insulin is known as an overall health marker. We have increased insulin in our body over an extended period of time. Our health will decline. Period. You have an increase of insulin in your body. You have, and can lead to, heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, cancer, kidney disease, obesity. Insulin is an overall health marker for your body. So we want to decrease the amount of insulin that is traveling through our body. How do we do that? Well, you control your diet. Right? Insulin is released to grab sugar. Now, this is real important. When we have high amounts of insulin in our body over an extended period of time, it produces something called insulin-like growth factor. It's called IGF-1. Okay, don't get caught up in the, just understand the principle. And it causes a decrease in IGF-BP3, insulin-like growth factor binding protein. Okay, what does that mean? When you have an increase of IGF, it causes an increase in acceleration of cell growth. Right? It causes an increase of cell growth. It stimulates cell growth. So now you have a great fuel for cancer. And when there's more sugar in the body, you have an increase of insulin that increases IGF. Now you have a stimulant for cell growth. Why is cancer so invasive? you control your diet, you can have a direct impact on cancer or not having cancer, right? This is important to understand. See, it's not just about, oh, don't have those sugary drinks. Don't eat all that white food, right? No, it's about your health and your life. That's how important it is to moderate your diet and understand the repercussions of what an unhealthy diet can look like. 38,351 women were studied and tracked over 8 years. So this is a pretty significant study, right? 38,000 women over 8 years. They followed these women, and they found that the higher their diet was with the glycemic index foods, they were 3 times more likely to have colorectal cancer. Now, I have to probably say that it wasn't highly glycemic or high glycemic index foods. It was probably glycemic load, but they just looked at the glycemic index because all those things aren't treated the same. Fruits and you know, the white foods, right? But the idea of the study, right? 3 times more likely. We look at cancer, 1 in 3 people get cancer. So I'm going to be a little bit gray cloud here. Look to the left and look to the right. Who are you? 1 out of 2 gets heart disease. Look to the left, look to the right. What number are you? Right? When we talk about these studies, when we talk about, you know, 34th in the world, 23rd in the country, right? That kind of brings it down a little bit. American Cancer Institute says 64% of the cancers are preventable. American Heart Institute says over 85% of the heart disease is preventable. This is how you prevent it. This is what you do. You know, this is why I spend time doing these things. I want to have an impact on your life. Now I want you to go and share this with other people. Let them know, hey, this is important stuff, right? It's not about saying to the kids, oh, don't have all that sugar, they'll be bouncing off the walls. This is a true story. This happened today. There's a Justin, a lady, and I take care of her family, right? She is a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. And her teacher said, oh, I think your child has a propensity towards ADD, 6-year-old. Okay? So she went to the pediatrician, and she said, what do you think about this? What should I do? I don't want to put the kids on Ritalin or anything, but what should I do? Honest to God, true story. You can ask Mary Catherine when you come in next time. She was standing right here because she asked me in the hallway. And I was glad she asked me in the hallway because people were listening to this. Okay? You know what the pediatrician said? You know what I did with my kids? I gave them caffeine in the morning. This is what he did for hyperactivity, right? Caffeine in the morning. I gave them a soda for lunch and caffeine at night. 3 times a day since they were in 1st grade.
Oh.
And he recommended that for her son to give him a competitive advantage. The caffeine will jack you up, right? My theory was he probably did that. The kids got all jacked up, but then they crashed. So he said it's probably better. This is what he said to the lady. She said, what do you think about that?
And he has a license
So I
to
said,
practice medicine?
Absolutely. So I said to her, I said, well, where do you want me to start? I said, that is the most preposterous thing you can ever say. You're going to give a 6-year-old, first of all, let's go back. What 6-year-old is not hyper? What 6-year-old is going to sit there and do work? 6-year-old, they're not even in kindergarten yet. I mean, if my kids were non-hyperactive, I would say, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you'd be
Wake up.
worried.
Yeah, right? See, I told her, I said, your child has only been on the earth for 6 years. Do you think they know structure? Right? And as far as giving them caffeine, did the doctor talk to you about how caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant, causes vasoconstriction, can increase blood pressure, how it causes acidity in your body and decreases your pH to where it's very acidic? Did they talk to you about that? Did they talk to you how calcium is going to be leached out of the bones, magnesium leached out of the muscles to try and counteract the acidity in the body? I said, ask them about that. Ask them the long-term effects of that on a 6-year-old. I said, my recommendation, let your child be hyper. If she feels like climbing a tree, let her go. It'll tire her out. Then she won't be so hyper, right? But what do? This is how we create belief systems. This is what produces certain action steps, produces certain outcomes, produces lack of health. So you're in control of that. So about 90% of the sugar that insulin grabs is stored as fat, saturated fat. This is why you want to moderate your diet with the type of carbohydrates, fiber type carbohydrates. So now, something else we want to talk about is how food stimulates different types of hormones to regulate our appetite and cessation of appetite. This is how we keep consistent weight. Anybody ever go on a diet, go off a diet and gain more weight back? Why does that happen? So we have something called leptin. It's a hormone. Floats around fat cells, produced by fat cells. Okay? Floats around in the blood. So leptin is kind of like a check system for your body. When our fat stores are low, leptin is going to decrease in the blood. Your brain says, your hypothalamus says, where are you? You mustn't be around, so that means fat cells are low, fat storage is low. Let's eat. Remember, what I'm talking about is how the body's designed. Why is that designed that way? Because 40,000 years ago, we didn't go down to the market to get food. You ever watch a lion on safari? They get the gazelle, what do? They gorge on the gazelle, right? Like it's the last meal, because you don't know when the next one's going to come by. Well, 40,000 years ago, that's what happened to us. When's the next buffalo going to come by? When's the next salmon going to swim by? Right? So we had to eat a lot, so we had energy storage. So our body is designed to tell us when to eat. It's not just, oh, it's 5 o'clock. Let's go. Right? When do we eat? 9, 12, and 5. I grew up and my mom would be like, hey kids, come on, it's lunchtime. I'm not hungry. Well, it's lunchtime.
Yeah.
Well, who said? I'm not hungry. Well, you got to come in and eat. All right, I guess it's 12 o'clock. Right? So our brain tells us when to eat, and it also tells us when to stop. So leptin decreases, and our brain says, eat. Fat storage increases. Well, leptin increases, and when there's more leptin in the blood, signals to the brain, says cessation of appetite. That's how food is designed, to stimulate this hormone. To stimulate ghrelin, which is like its counterpart. Just in case leptin falls asleep, we have ghrelin. So when fat stores are low, ghrelin increases. The brain, the hypothalamus, finds this out and says, we need to eat. Fat stores are low. We're seeing ghrelin hanging around here. Fat stores go up. We don't see ghrelin. We don't need to eat. So it's like a check system. We got 2 people on the job, right? So I have a bowl of apples here, and I say, hey, you want a bowl? You want an apple? How many could you eat at one time? 1, maybe 2, right? Why? Because it stimulates ghrelin and leptin. Our body has to process that apple, has to break it down. It takes a long time. The brain says, hey, we can't do it with more than 1, maybe 2 apples, right? So you're not going to overeat on apples. But now if I have a bag of chips here, a box of cookies, how many are you going to go through? Right? Depends how long the show is on for. Because the food is designed that way. It does not stimulate ghrelin and leptin. Processed food does not stimulate ghrelin and leptin. So you don't know when to stop. You keep going. Until when? When lunchtime's over. All right? It's 5:30. Right? So it doesn't stimulate those things. But now watch, follow me here. Okay? There are leptin receptors on the heart. So when there's an increase of leptin, it increases CPK. Okay? It increases C-reactive protein. When C-reactive protein increases, we are prone to heart disease. We are prone to high cholesterol, inflammation, strokes. So when your body becomes resistant to leptin the same way it could with insulin, and now your brain says, I've had enough. Not even listening. It's always here. Why? Because we eat so much, it doesn't stimulate leptin. So we have our bodies all out of whack. We don't know to stop. So we just finally ignore it. We keep eating. Now, leptin stimulates C-reactive protein receptors on the heart. And we're more prone to heart disease. Why do you think people that are overweight are more prone to heart disease? Anybody ever think like why? That's one of the reasons. We have something called sleep apnea that's more prevalent today, right? Never heard of this 30 years ago. But now we hear of it, right? Increase in leptin and ghrelin interferes with melatonin, decreases melatonin, inhibits melatonin. So now what happens? We don't fall asleep. You ever hear that people who don't sleep real well, don't sleep regularly, tend to gain weight? They can't lose weight? That's why. The types of food you eat changes the melatonin, and our body doesn't fall asleep. So it doesn't fall asleep, and now our whole body chemistry is thrown off. See, if you can eat certain foods that stimulate these hormones, you regulate your whole body chemistry better. The body works the way it's designed. You should have 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep. Good restful sleep. You ever eat a lot at night, right? Your body has to process it, so it also takes energy away and you're not comfortable, but also throws off ghrelin and leptin. So you don't sleep real well. See, your body should go to sleep. On a lean person produces more melatonin because there's less interference to it. Sleep apnea, most times sleep apnea is going to affect people who are overweight because it affects these chemicals. So this is how deep you have to go to understand your diet. And I know I go into a lot of detail. I'm trying not to confuse you, but I want you to understand. If I just got up here and talked about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats and said, hey, these are the percentages, you wouldn't understand why. See, if you understand why, you don't have to remember all the CPK, C-reactive protein. You don't have to remember IgA. You just have to remember the concept, right? But now you have a why for doing things. So this is why it's real important to eat foods we are designed to eat, because it causes your whole body to be in balance. But it's not only the foods, it's what you drink too. Yeah, we drink all these sugary drinks, the sippy cups. Alcohol does the same thing. I'm not saying you can't have a drink, but that increases sugar. And it throws off ghrelin and leptin. Throws off melatonin. You drink at night, you don't sleep real well. That's what they tell me. Right? You don't sleep real well. Why is that? Why should that be? Because it throws off the melatonin. See, this is stuff that is real important to understand, the concept, because now you put together a healthy diet that we're designed to eat, and your whole body is in balance. It's confusing too. It's like, well, now what foods do I buy? Okay, now I have to buy foods that have a lot of fiber, but what ones do I buy? I'm going to give you a great website. Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. EWG.org. This is a website. They do about 87,000 tests for pesticide on food. Right, these are all nonprofit groups. They do all this testing on food to see what foods carry with it the most amount of pesticides, which ones carry with it the least amount of pesticides. So I'm not going to read through all of them because you can go on the website, but they have something called the Dirty Dozen. These are the ones that have the highest amount of pesticide, high pesticide loads, they call it. Peaches, apples, bell peppers, celery, nectarines, strawberries, cherries, kale, lettuce, imported grapes, carrots, pears. These are the ones that have the most amount of pesticides. These are the ones that you say, well, if I'm going to spend my money on organic food, this is where I'll put my money. That's why I give you this list. Right? Onions, avocado, sweet corn. Now, if you were at the last one, you'll know GMO, right? So you want to buy organic. Pineapple, mangoes, kiwi, cabbage. These are the clean ones. So now if you say, well, I only have this much money, where do I put that money? Organic food, non-organic food, I don't know. This will give you direction. Okay? That will give you direction. So that will help you to decide what foods, number one, I should be buying, and what foods I should purchase. Here's the tricky thing. You also have to look at what your food that you're eating ate. You ever think of that? You might not want to think of that. So when we look at protein, we want to stay away from red meat, right? Because of cholesterol and all. You hear this? That's no. That's the no button. No. It's the type of protein. We're designed to eat protein. It's the type of protein. Follow me now. If you have a 1/4 pound grass-fed bison steak, 1/4 pound grass-fed bison steak, it has 0.9 grams of fat. If you have a 1/4 pound grain-fed steak, it has 9.7 grams of fat. Grains increase the weight of animals, almost double than when they eat grass. That's why they're fed this stuff. So they gain weight fat. Well, what do you think it does to us? Gain weight. But now, it also throws off the fat content. What kind of fat is bad? Omega-3 or omega-6? Do you know? What kind of cholesterol is bad? HDLs or LDLs? LDLs. They're all good. We need them. We wouldn't have them if they weren't good, but in the right ratio. Right? They're all necessary, but in the right ratio. So now, grass-fed beef has a ratio, omega-6 to omega-3 of 1:1, maybe 2:1. That's a healthy ratio. Grain-fed can be as much as 20:1. That's when you want to watch the cholesterol and the fats. That's the dangerous one. 12, 15, that's about average, but it can be as high as 20, 22:1. That's what's important to watch. So now, grass-fed, that's what you want to look for. Now, I have people that say, you know, I get my eggs. Okay, someone asked me this question, so I researched it for them. I'm buying Eggland's Best. You ever see this? You know, no antibiotics, no hormones, things like this. No antibiotics, no hormones. So that's going to be a good choice, right? You want to hear the buzzer?
Yeah.
Because now I said, well, that sounds good. But let's see what the hens and the chickens ate. So now, Eggland's Best has an organic and a non-organic egg, but they both don't have hormones and things like that. So now the non-organic Eggland's Best eggs. Now, if you were at the last talk, you'll know a little bit about the GMO foods, but I'll explain it. Has an all-vegetarian diet. When you see all-vegetarian diet, corn. You're thinking, oh, it's a vegetarian. Oh, that's great. Tie-dye and all comes back, right? Corn. So the non-organic egg or feed is healthy grains, healthy
That's an oxymoron,
grains. We know now that's kind of a comedy. Healthy grains, canola oil, a supplement of rice bran, alfalfa, sea kelp, and vitamin E. They have to put vitamin E in because grass has vitamin E in it. So they have to put vitamin E in it because it comes from grains. They're not going to get vitamin E. And we know from the other talks that alfalfa is a GMO food, grains, rice, canola oil. So now my egg that I'm eating, that the chicken or the hen that was not given antibiotics or hormones, but it's eating all GMO food, what do you think I'm eating? GMO food. So you have to understand, you have to be like a detective.
What do you look for? Free-range chicken?
Now, the organic Eggland's Best have a different diet. The grains used in our hens' diets are produced on land that is free from use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers for a minimum of 3 years. Still fed grains, but they're not given the vegetarian diet that the other one was. Why? Shouldn't they all eat the same thing? Because the company knows it's cheaper to feed them the corn. It's more expensive to feed them the organic grains. Not the best source of food for the hen. It's not a natural food for them, but it's better. You can get the organic ones over at Walmart, by the way. But now I'm looking for grass-fed because I'm concerned about the ratio of omega-6s and omega-3s because the grains throw it off. I eat about 5 eggs. Well, I eat 5 eggs every morning. So I want to be concerned about that because I want a healthy ratio of omega-6 and omega-3s. I also want to make sure my eggs are non-GMO. And they have the label non-GMO project on them. Right? So you have to look at it. When I look at meat, what's the diet of this animal? Vegetarian diet. Interesting. So it's eating all the GMO foods, but yet it's not giving hormones, steroids, and antibiotics. Well, that's good, but it's still full of chemicals. Now, most stores don't have this. Whole Foods has this. On the packaging, it'll have a number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 means that animal was grass-fed for 1/4 of its life. 2 for 2 quarters, 3 for 3 quarters, 4 for its whole life. I'm looking for 4s, or at least 3s. Right? Whole Foods, I love Whole Foods because they do a great job in educating you if you know what to look for. That's what I'm looking for. Because I know if it's a vegetarian diet, it's fed corn, and it's not going to be non-GMO corn. It's going to be GMO corn. So right away I know not only am I eating a GMO corn, I'm also eating something that's going to cause an increase in my omega-6s, the ones that cause a problem. So you have to look at the labels. Like I said, I had to research this. Why would a company feed its hens 2 different types of food? Right? One of them is raised on one area. For 3 years minimum, it's organic. That's by law, right? And the other one's just grazing over here in the chemical pasture. But you don't know that, and you look at the label, you say, oh, it's no antibiotics, no steroids, that's good. Which it is, but you have to go past that. So you have to look at, see, reading the ingredients is one thing, but knowing what that food ate is even another. So you have to be very aware, and you have to be educated. See, our diet should be rich in fat. We're told our diet should be about 55% carbohydrates, about 15% protein, about 30% fat. But in reality, we're designed to have about 40% fat, somewhere around 33, 35% protein, and about 25% carbohydrates. Like I said, my diet is about 40% fat. How am I looking? Right? But it's healthy fat. It's healthy fat. You get a lot of energy from it. Right? Eating protein also takes more work on your body to digest. So if it takes more work, you're burning more calories, you're burning more fat to break it down. You're also not going to eat as much. You're also not going to be hungry later. Now, if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, non-fiber carbohydrates, you're going to be hungry pretty quick because it's very fast to break those down. And that doesn't require a lot of energy. So you're going to say, oh, let me eat these. And I'm hungry again. But when you increase protein, you're also stabilizing your diet or your weight. And it's very easy because it takes a lot of energy to break it down. See, a lot of people will say, especially women, oh, I want to decrease that protein. I don't want to gain weight. Right? We think protein, muscle. So guys say, I got to bulk up. I need a lot of protein. Women tend to eat more carbohydrates. Right? We should have more protein, less carbohydrates. Non-fiber carbohydrates. So these are helpful little hints. If you understand what we went over, we just formulated a healthy diet. We just put together a whole diet. This is why it's going to be on our website next week, so you can look at it again. I missed that. Right? We just put together a whole diet. I just told you what kind of carbohydrates you eat. I told you how many to eat, how much. Until you don't want anymore. Because you're not going to overeat carrots and celery and broccoli and salad. Can't happen. And if you're eating healthy carbohydrates, healthy protein, are you going to even be concerned about fat? No. I eat like 2 avocados a day. It's saturated fat. I'm not even concerned about it. My body needs that. I cook with coconut oil, saturated fat. That's healthy though. Right? That's what you should be using when you cook. and you heat things up, coconut oil. Moderate, low heat, or on your salads, that's when you use your extra virgin olive oil. I'll get more into it next time. But those are saturated fats and those are healthy. We need those. Last thing I'm going to touch on is dairy. Does the body good. We need it for what? Strong teeth, strong bones? Isn't that what we've been told?
We've been told that.
We've been told that by who?
The dairy producers.
The dairy producers. You know who the American Dairy Association is? We think this is this association that, you know who it is? Years ago, they said, I'm a farmer. Hey, I'm a farmer too. How are we going to market this stuff? I don't know. I don't have time to do that. I'm farming. I'm milking cows. Well, why don't we put together a group of people who represent us? Okay, let's call it the American Dairy Association because we're dairy farmers. We live in America. Okay, done. American Dairy Association. Who do you think they represent? The dairy industry. Why do you think they tell you milk is good for you? Strong bones, so you buy it. They're not looking out for your best interest. They're not a nonprofit third-party group. When you look at dairy, I'm going to make this very simple. Anybody have a dog? Okay, anybody have a cat? A rabbit? Any kind of animal? Does your dog, cat, rabbit, or hawk go to another animal and say, hey, you mind if I just suckle over here for a little bit? No. We're the only animal that says, let me go to this giant animal and drink its milk. And because it's so big, you're not going to just kind of, smooch it a little bit and say, oh, you mind if I grab on here and drink? No, we'll just put it in the bottle. It'll be safer. We're not going to get squashed. Right? We're the only animal that goes to another animal for milk. Here's the thing. We're designed to drink milk. We are, from our mom. Till about the age of maybe 3, 4, when we stop producing the enzyme lactase that breaks down the milk. Now we have this lactose-free milk. And we have why? Because we weren't meant to drink it. So everybody's lactose intolerant. I think it's great. Everybody's lactose intolerant. Everybody is glucose intolerant. Some people are just subclinical. In other words, they don't have the symptoms. I was talking to somebody when we did this program earlier today. She said, oh, I'm glucose intolerant. I said, great. So you can't eat the foods that aren't good for you anyway. So yeah, that's great. Oh, I didn't think about that. But here's the thing. Vitamin D, calcium. It's in this little lockbox. The only key is lactase. Opens it up, and then we get at the vitamin D and the calcium. But if you don't have the key, you can't open it up. We don't make the key after about 3 or 4 years old. We drink another animal's milk. That animal is designed a little bit differently than us. If you didn't notice, a cow is designed a little bit differently than a human. Okay? I'll let you take that in for a minute till you realize, yeah, that's true. Right? A cow, the casein in cow's milk, like mother's breast milk is very watery. Cow's milk is very thick. The casein in cow's milk is about 300 times thicker than breast milk. They use casein on wallpaper as an adhesive. Right? So it's very difficult for us to break down. That's why when you drink milk, you ever get that film? Like,
Especially whole milk.
yeah, especially whole milk. That's why. Your body it's trying to get rid of it. Doesn't know what to do with it. We're not meant to drink it. Now, if you start drinking milk, they're doing studies now on the kids. The bone structure of our kids is bigger than it was years ago. Like if I was born today, a good chance I'd be in the NFL when I'm older. Okay, I missed that opportunity. All right.
Probably.
I got over it and I'm okay with it. But here's the thing. We want a cow to produce a lot of milk. Right? That's our money source, our revenue source. How do we do that? We put hormones in it to get it bigger, stronger, and we milk it a lot, more than it should be milked. So now the udders start getting infected. So we have to give it antibiotics. Well, you think that stops in the cow, or does that transfer into the milk that we drink? Transfers into the milk we drink. They're going back to hormones, putting in food, especially the dairy, causing the kids to be bigger than they used to be. we're changing our genetic structure. So milk, if you're going to drink it, best to drink organic milk. But now we have so many alternatives. Almond milk, rice milk, soy milk, as long as it's organic, so it's not a GMO product. We have more opportunities to have more alternatives, right? But that's why milk is not healthy. That's why dairy is not healthy for us.
Just shoot me now.
That's the reality. My job is to inform you. Your job is to create a belief system that's congruent with the information you have that's going to produce certain behaviors and actions and outcomes. First thing I do when I talk to people who have allergies, especially the kids, what kind of dairy consumption is there? Get them off the dairy. Get them off the white foods. It's amazing. Eczemas, all the skin conditions. Skin is an exit vehicle. We're going to get rid of stuff. We'll get it through the skin, right? These things are helped tremendously by taking them off all those foods. There's something else I forgot to mention that grains cause. Something called intestinal permeability. Intestinal permeability is this. We eat food, goes down through the intestine, minuscule little particles go through the intestine into the blood, travels around, building healthy cells and tissues in the body. But now, grains cause something called intestinal permeability. That's when larger food items, food particles, pass through the intestine into the blood. As a result of that, the body says, what is this? We need to get it and attack it. Now these particles start to transform and resemble some of our own body cells. So we start to attack ourselves. That's called autoimmune response, autoimmune disease. Why is it everybody's allergic to peanuts now? You go into school, you get frisked for peanut butter. My kids eat peanut butter and jelly in school. They have to sit at a special table. Years ago, everybody had peanut butter and jelly. Called it Spready Freddy. Everybody had a Spready Freddy. From New Jersey, so everything has a nickname, right? Everybody had them. Nobody's allergic to it. It's a food. We shouldn't be allergic to a food, right? But because peanuts pass through, your body identifies it as foreign and starts attacking itself. That's called an inflammatory response. Autoimmune diseases. Anybody here hear about autoimmune diseases 30 years ago? No.
I developed it 30 years ago.
Yeah, and that could be from what we ate. But they hardly existed back then. It's something they had to name for the effects of our lifestyle. That's an autoimmune disease. It's not a condition of itself. It's not a growth. It's a side effect of the foods and the lifestyle. That's what autoimmune disease is. We had to name it so we can treat it. Why not look at why is it here and correct that? You know, it's like aspartame causes something called excitotoxicity in the brain. That name did not exist until aspartame. We had to name the side effect of aspartame, causing overexcitation of the neurons in the brain. So we call it overexcitation of the brain, excitotoxicity, excitoneuratoxicity. Bizarre. And now we treat it. Here's the Ritalin. In the United States, we take more Ritalin than the entire rest of the world combined. Look at our lifestyle. Look at our health.
And Ritalin is a stimulant.
Ritalin is a suppressant for people that are overstimulated.
Well, they
Adderall,
say that
Ritalin.
in and
In
of
adults,
itself,
it's a stimulant.
it's a stimulant.
In adults, in children, it's not.
Uh-huh.
That's why teenage kids now get the Ritalin from the little kids, and they take it, and it's a stimulant. Whole another problem. Another topic. So I know I've gone over a couple minutes, but hopefully this gives you a little better understanding about the foods that we eat. I always tell people, do not worry about what you eat. Don't concern yourself about what you eat. Focus on what you buy. Because if you're buying healthy foods, you're eating healthy foods. Right? So this talk is designed to help you become more informed, give you a foundation for understanding food and how it affects you. Because if you understand the concepts of what we talked about, you start to put together and formulate a healthy diet. Went over a lot of information, and my purpose isn't to make you scientists, but it's really meant to give you the why. You can go on our website, it'll be on our website next week. You can look at it, take a look at the information. Go to the websites I mentioned. They're great websites. They're easy to navigate through. I go over with my kids and I say, hey kids, what food should we eat? What has the most energy? That's how I'm educating them, right? The Clean 15. This is why Daddy buys organic food, right? It helps them understand. They talk to me in terms of energy of foods. Dave, does this give me energy? Well, what do you think? You know, it's in a container in a box. Or does this give you energy? This apple, right? So that's the way I'm educating my kids. You know, our mission is to help as many families as possible create healthy lifestyles and reach optimal health through chiropractic. So I hope you share this with other people. Let them know about what you've learned. Let them know about what resources we have. They don't even have to ever come in here. They can go to our website. You know, my purpose is to educate people about health. I want to turn lights on in people. Not only turn the power on, as we say with the adjustment, but turn the lights on in people. You know, if you ever walk around and you really look at people, they look bright and vibrant. You know, it's like a dimmer switch. We start bright and vibrant, but then through life, it's like somebody turns that switch down. We don't look happy. We don't look great. Well, I want to turn the switch up because that's how we should be living. We are designed to live well into our hundreds, 120, 30 years old. Right? I just had my 48th birthday. I'm like a teenager. Right? But we have an average lifespan of 76 years old. When I'm 76, right? Or when my kids are my age, I'll have already been dead if I accept that. To me, that's just not, I can't even conceive of that. I'm training now to prepare for 100 and some years old. Right? That's the way I look at my life. The way I exercise, the way I eat. I'm not perfect. I didn't grow up like this. You know, what changed my life was when I was in chiropractic school, when we had to work on cadavers. And you start to see the insides of people. And you read the ticket, how did they die? Wow, that's preventable. I'm changing that in my life. Right? The great thing is, you know how you have all new cells and tissues? Every year you're a new person. So it doesn't matter what you did up to this point. You change today, and you do that consistently. Right? It doesn't mean you can't go out to dinner or have a pizza or something like this every now and again. But if you're consistent with what you do, you can change your whole body because you're going to develop all new healthy cells and tissues. You eat an apple, you break down that apple, those cells and tissues in your heart, your lungs, your stomach are from the apple. Yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. But now, you eat that bag of potato chips, that's all you got. So the cells and tissues of your heart, your liver, your lungs come from the potato chips. See, we have a choice. Somebody told me once, I think it was maybe Zig Ziglar or one of these, they said our life is like a candle. We should burn bright and at the end just flicker out. But we live in a world that, you know, that electric lighter, you know, that lights the grill, we keep relighting it, right? But that's not how we should live. I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick and then I'm done because I know I kept you over. Do you know how we are born with a genetic potential? Okay? So our genes, right, it's like this perfect blueprint, this perfect picture, the most vibrant picture you can imagine. And from that, picture it as an 11 by 17 picture. Okay? Now, eventually that cell is going to die, and we're going to replace it. The only way the new cell is going to know what to do is take a copy of the original. But now we don't have an 11 by 17 copier. Our copier is only 8.5 by 11. So we cut off a little bit of that picture. That's the potential of the gene that we cut off. So now that copy is never going to be as clear as the original. And then we make a copy of that copy. and a copy of that copy and a copy of that copy, and it doesn't become as clear, right? What causes you to make more copies? Lifestyle. Stress. The less stress you have, the healthier your lifestyle. Cells live longer. They don't need to be copied as frequently. That's how you extend your life. That's your choice. So you're in the driver's seat on that. It's not about your genes. We call it bad genes, bad luck. You know, my parents have this, my parents have that. Well, has nothing to do with it. Only about maybe 3 to 5%, if that, conditions are genetic. There is no high blood pressure gene. There is no diabetic gene. I don't know about the gray hair thing. Right? But there is no gene for obesity. They haven't identified a gene for diabetes. There is none. Now we have potential within our genes called epigenetics. And that gene can be expressed or not, depending on the environment it's in. They do studies on twins. Take two twins and they were separated at birth. Not for the study, but they just were, right? They're separated at birth. And this twin lives with a healthy family. Okay? But it's genetic, brother or sister, okay, lives with a very unhealthy family. Genetically, they are the same. Genetically, they are the same. This person lives a healthy life. This one develops cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, things like that. Same things that his step-parents have, or adopted parents, whatever, right? Why is that? Genetically, they're the same because the environment in which the gene was placed was expressed. See, that's how they know genes don't have anything to do with it. Not bad luck or bad genes. So, to me, that's exciting news because we're in the driver's seat. We get to choose. We get to design our beliefs, then brings about our actions and outcomes. So I hope this information gives you some insight. And I want to recognize your time here, and I appreciate that. This is what motivates me. You know, this is why I do these talks. Because you're interested, and you want to make a difference. Not only in your lives, but the people that you influence, which are your kids, your friends, family, right? So I thank you for being here, and I appreciate your time. I know I went over about 20 minutes or so. I can keep going if you want. But I appreciate your time, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna go home and eat one of the apples that I bought, and I'm gonna throw away the packaging.
That's a good choice.